Saratu did not wake up one morning and decide to become soft. It was in February that softness entered her life. Before February, Saratu was what people politely called strong, which is a beautiful word that usually means doing too much. She woke before sunrise. She made food for the house. She reminded Kabiru about fuel. She reminded Kabiru about his mother's drugs. She reminded Kabiru about NEPA bill. She reminded Kabiru to reply to his boss. If responsibility were a chair, many people were using Saratu to sit down comfortably, especially her husband Kabiru. However, Kabiru was not a bad man. He was simply comfortable. He believed if something was working, do not disturb it. Saratu had been working for 5 years, so why disturb? Then a women's conference happened in February titled Unlocking Your Feminine Frequency 2026. The banner was pink and the speakers were glowing. The women were dressed as if soft power had a dress code. Saratu attended because her friend Reby dragged her. "You must come," Reby said. "You are over-functioning." Saratu blinked. "Is that a disease?" "Yes," Reby replied seriously. "You are in your masculine survival mode." Saratu did not know what that meant, but it sounded expensive, so she went. Inside the conference hall, women were nodding as if revelation had appeared in physical form. One speaker declared boldly, "Stop auditioning for Wife of the Year. Rest in your feminine energy." The hall shouted. Another speaker added, "Soft life is not laziness, it is alignment." Saratu wrote it down aggressively in her notebook. Alignment. A third woman said, "If he can rest, you too can rest." That sentence entered Saratu's soul like a motivational injection. And by the end of the conference, Saratu had a new tote bag that said Main Character Energy, a scented candle, as well as a notebook titled Lean Back and Receive Dangerous Confidence. She returned home that Sunday evening glowing differently. Kabiru was in the sitting room watching football with a serious face as if the players knew him personally. Saratu dropped her bag gently. "Kabiru," he did not look away from the screen. 2026 is different," she said. He finally turned. "What happened?" "I have awakened." Kabiru muted the television slowly. "To what?" "To my feminine energy," Saratu replied. He stared at her. "Is it inside the house?" She ignored that. "For years, I have been over-functioning," she added. Kabiru blinked twice. "Functioning? How?" Saratu began counting calmly. "Who reminds you about generator fuel?" "You," Kabiru replied. "Who tracks school fees for your sister?" "You," he replied again. "Who pays for water when you forget?" "You," he replied. "Who reminds you of your own birthday?" Kabiru opened his mouth, then closed it. Saratu smiled softly. "I am leaning back." Kabiru's eyebrows rose. "Leaning back from where?" "From unnecessary struggle," she replied. Kabiru stood up slowly. "You are not sick?" She laughed lightly. "No, I'm not." "Did someone offend you at the conference?" he asked. She shook her head. "No." "Are you joining politics?" She shook her head again. "No." He stepped closer and touched her forehead. "You are not hot." She moved his hand gently. "Kabiru, relax. I am simply choosing soft life." Kabiru sat down carefully. "What is soft life?" Saratu smiled. "It is when I stop carrying everything like a village borehole." Kabiru frowned. "So, who will carry it?" Saratu smiled peacefully. "The masculine energy in the house." Kabiru looked around as if another man might be hiding behind the curtain. "There is no masculine energy here except me." "Exactly," Saratu replied sweetly. That night at dinner, Saratu did something suspicious. She did not argue about salt. She did not ask about tomorrow's schedule. She did not remind him about his uncle's call. She simply ate quietly. Kabiru watched her carefully and asked, "Why are you quiet?" "I am at peace," she replied. "You are too quiet." "I am aligned," she replied again. Kabiru finished his food slowly. Later that night, he called Reby secretly. "Please, what did you people do to my wife?" Reby laughed loudly. "She upgraded." "But she's talking about frequency," Kabiru complained. "That is growth," Reby replied. "She said I am masculine energy." "Yes, you are now." "But I have always been a man." "Yes, but now you must act like it," Reby declared. Kabiru hung up in confusion. The next morning, something shocking happened. NEPA bill was on the table, and Saratu walked past it. Kabiru stared at her. "Are you not seeing that?" "I am seeing," she replied calmly. "You would not remind me?" "I trust your leadership," she replied. Kabiru's stomach tightened slightly. Trust felt heavier than reminder. By afternoon, Auntie Awa from the next door noticed Saratu walking slower than usual. "My dear, are you pregnant?" she asked. "No, ma," Saratu replied. "Then why are you glowing like this?" "I am resting in my feminine aura," Saratu replied. Auntie Awa adjusted her wrapper. "Is that from the hospital?" Saratu smiled. "No, it is internal." Meanwhile, Kabiru was getting restless. He called his friend Musa to rant. "My wife is behaving strange." "What did she do?" Musa asked. "She is calm." Musa was quiet for a minute. Then he said, but that is good." "No," Kabiru argued. "It is not normal calm. It is intentional calm." Musa laughed. "Maybe she's planning something." No, that sentence did not help. That evening, when generator fuel finished, Saratu did not shout from the kitchen. She simply lit a candle and sat down elegantly. Then she called softly, "Kabiru." "Yes," he answered. "The generator has expired." "Expired?" "Yes, kindly handle it," she said. Kabiru stood up slowly. "Handle how?" "With provider energy," she replied. He went outside confused. And when he returned from buying fuel, he found Saratu journaling. "What are you writing?" he asked. "My 2026 affirmations," she replied. "Can you read one? Let me hear." She cleared her throat and read aloud. "I do not overwork for appreciation crumbs." Kabiru frowned. "Crumbs?" He sat beside her. "Saratu, yes." "Are you angry?" She looked at him calmly. "No." "Then why does this feel like punishment?" Saratu smiled gently. "It is not punishment." "Then what is it?" Kabiru asked. "It is upgrade." Kabiru stared at the ceiling. Upgrade? He did not remember downloading any upgrade. That night, he slept lightly. Every time Saratu turned on the bed, he opened one eye. She looked peaceful, too peaceful, and this kind of peace was scary. The next morning, Kabiru woke up before his alarm. Strangely, the house was too quiet. There was no clanging of pots, no aggressive sweeping, no Saratu shouting, "Kabiru, you will be late, oh!" He sat up quickly and called, "Saratu!" But he got no answer. He rushed to the kitchen and saw Saratu there. Well, she was not cooking. She was sitting and drinking warm lemon water from a transparent glass like a wellness influencer. She was even wearing a silk robe. In the morning, on a Tuesday, she turned and said, "Kabiru, good morning." He blinked. "Why are you dressed as if you are hosting a podcast?" She smiled. "I am protecting my feminine softness." He looked at the empty stove. "Where is breakfast?" She smiled peacefully and said, "I decided to conserve my energy. I have been operating in survival mode." Kabiru stared at the bread on the table. "So, what do I eat?" She tilted her head gently and said, "You are capable." "Capable?" He stood there looking at the bread like a confused farmer. "You want me to fry egg?" If your spirit leads you, she replied. Kabiru dropped his shoulders slowly, but by 8 a.m., he had fried egg for the first time in his adult life. It was slightly burnt and he ate it alone in silence. Saratu continued sipping her lemon water as if she had been born in a spa. Later that afternoon, the gas finished. Normally, Saratu would begin her emergency strategy immediately. But today, she sat down and called, Kabiru! Yes, the gas has transitioned. Kabiru frowned. Transitioned? Yes, it has completed its journey. Kabiru stared at the cylinder. You mean it finished? I prefer not to use negative language in 2026, she replied. Kabiru took a deep breath. So, what do we cook with? Saratu smiled serenely. Provider energy must rise. Kabiru blinked repeatedly. He had never hated two words more than provider energy. By evening, the compound had noticed. Auntie Hawa leaned over the fence and asked, Saratu, why did Kabiru carry gas cylinder on his head? Saratu adjusted her silk robe. He's stepping into his masculine authority. Auntie Hawa froze. Is he in politics now? No, ma, she replied. Meanwhile, Kabiru was sweating heavily after returning from refilling the cylinder. He entered the house and found Saratu journaling again. What are you writing now? He asked. Saratu smiled. My soft life audit. What is that? I am reviewing areas where I overperformed. Kabiru sat down slowly. Are you saying I underperformed? Saratu gaped slightly. No, I would never accuse. Then, Kabiru asked, I am simply redistributing responsibility. Redistributing? Kabiru suddenly felt like a national budget. That night, something bigger happened. Kabiru's mother called. Normally, Saratu would speak for 30 minutes. She would listen to the long complaints about distant relatives, and she would even promise to send small money. But this time, she handed the phone to Kabiru after greeting politely. Your mother, she said. Kabiru frowned. Why are you not talking to her? I am conserving emotional bandwidth, she replied. Kabiru nearly dropped the phone. After the call, he turned slowly. You did not offer to send her money. Saratu looked at him calmly and asked, Did you? There was silence. Well, he had not. I thought we would discuss, he said weakly. We can discuss, she replied gently, but I am no longer the automatic solution. Kabiru felt the shift in his chest. For 5 years, Saratu had been automatic, but now she required participation. The next day, Saratu upgraded further. She ordered scented candles. She bought a diffuser and rearranged the sitting room. When Kabiru entered after work, he paused. The house looked like an Instagram page that had paid rent. What is happening here? He asked. I am curating my environment, she smiled. Kabiru looked around cautiously. Are we selling the house? No, she replied. Then why does it look expensive? Saratu smiled. Soft life is aesthetic. Kabiru sat down carefully. You are glowing too much. Thank you for the compliment, Saratu replied. It is suspicious. She didn't say anything more. Later that night, Kabiru called Musa again. My wife is not fighting. That is good, Musa said. She is not complaining. That is good, Musa repeated. She is not reminding me of anything, he complained again. Musa went silent. Yes, Kabiru nodded. That implies she has leaned back, Musa said. Kabiru swallowed hard. What does that mean? It means you must lean forward. Kabiru hung up slowly. He returned to the bedroom and found Saratu watching a YouTube video titled, Let Him Rise or Let Him Realize. Kabiru's heart skipped. He lay down gently and called, Saratu. Yes, she replied. Are we okay? She turned to him softly. We are aligning. Aligning to where? He asked. To balance, she replied. Kabiru stared at the ceiling again. He was beginning to understand something dangerous. Saratu was not angry. She was just strategic, and strategy is harder to argue with than emotion. The following morning, electricity bill reminder beeped on his phone. He looked at Saratu instinctively. She smiled gently and said, "I trust your leadership." Kabiru swallowed hard. Trust had never felt this heavy before. Normally, Saratu would say, "Kabiru, please don't forget oh." She would even calculate the exact amount and remind him twice before the due date. But now, she was sipping pap calmly like a man who had already forgiven NEPA in advance. "Kabiru," she said softly, "I believe in your provision frequency." Provision frequency? He opened the electricity app immediately, and the amount stared at him like an exam result. Saratu stood up slowly. "I am going for a walk." "In this heat?" Kabiru asked. "Yes, vitamin D aligns with the feminine aura." Kabiru stared at the sun outside. Even the sun too looked confused. By afternoon, the compound had gathered enough information. Auntie Hawa had already told 3 neighbors that Saratu had entered another level. "What level?" one of them asked. "Motivational level," she replied confidently. Meanwhile, Kabiru called an emergency meeting with his friends, Musa and Danladi, near the compound gate. He spoke in a low voice. "My wife has upgraded." Musa nodded seriously. "It happens." Danladi adjusted his cap. "What is the symptom?" "She now trusts my leadership." Both men were silent. "Ha, that is dangerous," so Musa whispered. Danladi added, "My brother, once they start trusting you loudly, they have stopped carrying." Kabiru looked at both of them. "So what do I do?" Musa leaned closer. "You must show visible masculinity." "What is that?" Kabiru asked. "Buy something, fix something, lift something. You have no choice at this point." Kabiru nodded as if he had received a military instruction. He entered the house determined. "Saratu," he called. "Yes?" "I have paid the electricity bill." She clapped gently. "Wow, I knew you would rise." Rise? He felt like he had climbed Mount Everest just by paying a bill he was already supposed to pay. That evening, Saratu did something else suspicious. She ordered food online. Kabiru watched the delivery man hand her the package. "You cooked?" he asked carefully. "No, I didn't." "Why?" "I felt like receiving," she shrugged. "Receiving what?" "Soft life women do not always stress in the kitchen," she replied. Kabiru stared at the food and asked, "Who paid?" "I did," she replied. Kabiru froze. "But you said masculine energy must provide." "Yes," she replied, "but feminine energy can also treat herself." Kabiru felt slightly insulted and slightly impressed at the same time. That night, Saratu upgraded further. She brought out silk pillowcases. Kabiru touched one and frowned. "Why is the pillow slippery?" "It protects the hair," Saratu replied. "But my hair is not in danger." "It protects the mindset too," she replied again. Kabiru lay down slowly. Something was happening in his house, and he did not attend any conference to prepare for it. The next morning, Saratu woke up later than usual. Not 5 a.m., not 6 a.m. She woke up at 7:30 a.m. Kabiru jumped up. "You are late." Saratu paused. "For what?" "Life." Saratu stretched calmly. "I have retired from unnecessary urgency." Kabiru blinked. "So, who will pack lunch?" She looked at him sweetly and said, "Collaborative efforts builds intimacy." Kabiru stared at the ceiling again. By afternoon, the compound men called another meeting. The topic was soft life pandemic. Danladi spoke first. "My cousin's wife did this so, and the next thing she opened a business." Musa nodded. "Yes, so they call it evolution." Kabiru looked stressed. "She speaks slowly now." "That is the advanced stage," Musa replied. "She walked slowly too. That one is branding," he added. Kabiru leaned forward. She stopped arguing. All 3 men fell silent. Danladi whispered, "That is the final stage." Back inside the house, Saratu was on a video call with Reby. I told you, Reby said excitedly. When you lean back, he leans forward. Saratu laughed softly. He is confused at the moment. Confusion is growth, Reby supported. Kabiru walked in halfway through the call. Reby waved from the screen. Brother Kabiru, how is masculine alignment? Kabiru laughed small. It is aligning well. After the call ended, he sat beside Saratu and called. Saratu, yes, she replied. Are you testing me? She gasped softly. Oh, no. Then why does it feel like an examination? Saratu smiled. Because you are participating for the first time. Kabiru stared at her. Participating? Had he not been living in this house? That night, the generator refused to start. Kabiru rushed outside. Normally, Saratu would stand beside him with a torchlight, but today, she stood at the door elegantly saying, Kabiru, you can do it. He struggled with the rope. Do what? You can activate your mechanical confidence, she said. Kabiru nearly laughed in frustration. After several attempts, the generator started. He walked back inside sweating and Saratu handed him cold water. You see, when I stop over-functioning, you function beautifully. Kabiru paused. Was that true? He thought about it carefully. He had paid the bill. He had refilled gas. He had fixed the generator. He had packed his own lunch and he had called his mother by himself. So, does it mean that Saratu had been carrying half of his adulthood for him? He sat down slowly. Saratu, yes, she replied. Soft life is stressful, oh. She laughed properly for the first time. It is only stressful for the one who was resting before. Kabiru leaned back on the couch. He looked at her glowing face. He looked at the silk pillows. He looked at the scented candle. Then he looked at himself. He touched his biceps to see if his masculine energy had truly activated. Indeed, it had. He exhaled deeply. For 2 weeks, the house functioned like a newly restructured company. Kabiru paid the bills on time. He checked the gas levels proactively and even created a small reminder list on his phone titled Provider Duties. As for Saratu, she glowed. She woke up without rushing. She stretched deeply. She journaled and she moisturized her body like someone whose ancestors had been dry for too long. The compound people came again. Auntie Hawa leaned over the fence one morning and called, My dear, your husband is buying bread in the morning now. Saratu smiled. Yes, ma. Shared responsibility builds romance. Auntie Hawa shook her head slowly. These modern women are dangerous. Meanwhile, Kabiru was trying. He truly was. But unfortunately, soft life had side effects nobody discussed at the conference. One Saturday, he returned from the market exhausted. He had bought foodstuffs, carried rice, as well as argued with one stubborn tomato seller. He entered the house expecting appreciation. Saratu was in the sitting room with a face mask on and cucumber slices on her eyes. Kabiru, welcome, she said. He stood there holding the nylon bags. Thank you. He waited for more, but she did not stand up or rush to him. She did not go to inspect the items. She just remained horizontal. Kabiru dropped the bag slowly. You are not coming to check what I bought? I trust your judgment, she said. Trust again. He walked to the kitchen alone, but 15 minutes later, he returned slightly irritated. This woman gave me small tomatoes, he complained. Saratu removed one cucumber slice and asked, Are they red? Yes, he replied. Saratu smiled. Then they are aligned. Kabiru blinked. Aligned? That evening, something bigger happened. Kabiru's cousin unexpectedly arrived from Kaduna. Before February, Saratu would have rushed to prepare the guest room, cooked a special meal and smiled enthusiastically even though she was tired. But now, she stood beside Kabiru and said, Your family, your masculine hosting energy. Kabiru froze. My what? You will lead hospitality, she smiled. His cousin stood awkwardly with his bag. Kabiru laughed. Yes, of course. He took his cousin inside, and that night, Kabiru was sweating in the kitchen trying to cook stew while his cousin scrolled through the phone. Later, Saratu passed through the kitchen elegantly. "You are doing amazingly well," she complimented. But Kabiru looked at the pot suspiciously. "This looks like tomato soup." Saratu smiled. "It is experimental." Kabiru stared at her. "Saratu, are you punishing me small?" She widened her eyes. "No, I am receiving." His cousin later whispered to Kabiru privately, "Your wife is calm." "Yes," Kabiru nodded. "Too calm." Kabiru nodded again. "I know." "Are you in trouble?" his cousin asked. "No, I am evolving." The following week, Kabiru had a stressful long day at work. He had to deal with pressure from his boss, targets and deadlines that same day. He returned home tired, expecting emotional cushioning. As he entered, Saratu was lighting scented candles. He dropped his bag heavily and sighed. "Saratu, today was bad." She turned slowly. "Oh no, tell me about it." He began explaining in detail. She listened, nodded, and did not interrupt. But she did not start solving for him. Neither did she say, "I warned you." She simply said, "I trust you to handle it." Kabiru stopped mid-sentence. "That is it?" "Yes," Saratu replied. "You would not analyze?" She shook her head. "No." "You will not advise me?" She shook her head again. "No." "You would not stress with me?" She shook her head. "I am no longer co-managing your stress." Kabiru stared at her. For years, she had carried his office problems emotionally like an unpaid intern, only to resign without notice. That night, he lay awake thinking. He missed her overcaring, her extra involvement, and her nagging sometimes. He turned to her. "Saratu." "Yes," she replied. "Are you still invested?" She opened one eye. "In what?" "In us," Kabiru replied. She sighed gently. "I am invested, Kabiru. I am just not over-functioning anymore." The next morning, another unexpected drama entered. The landlord came. Yes, the landlord. He stood outside shouting about compound water pump contribution. Kabiru froze. Before February, Saratu would have marched outside with a notebook and previous payment records. But today, she stood beside Kabiru calmly and said, "Go and speak." Kabiru swallowed his saliva. He walked out. The landlord was really loud. "You people think water runs on prayer?" Kabiru tried to respond diplomatically while Saratu watched through the window. For the first time, she felt a small pinch. Kabiru was struggling to handle these things. It was so noticeable. Still, she remained still. Soft rule number 5 was, do not overfunction. However, when the landlord raised his voice more and Kabiru's ears turned red, Saratu stepped out slowly, stood beside Kabiru and calmly said, "Good morning." The landlord paused. She spoke clearly. "We paid ahead for 4 months after the incident in November. You confirmed it yourself." The landlord blinked. He remembered. "Oh, yes, that one." He softened slightly. Just make sure next month is early." "We will," she replied. And then the landlord left. Kabiru turned slowly. "I thought you were leaning back." Saratu smiled. "I am, but it doesn't mean I am absent." Kabiru studied her face. He now got the full picture. Soft life was not laziness. It was recalibration. She had not abandoned him. She had simply stopped carrying everything alone. That evening, Kabiru faced her. "Saratu." "Yes." "Maybe I was resting too much before." She laughed. "Maybe." "And maybe you were overworking." "Definitely," she nodded. He leaned back on the couch. "So, this is what 2026 is about?" She nodded. "Yes." "Balance." Kabiru looked at her glowing face. "Next conference I am attending with you." She gasped. "You want feminine frequency too?" Kabiru laughed. "No, I want the manual." As they were laughing outside the compound, Auntie Hawa whispered to another neighbor, "I don't don't know what that girl attended in February, but her husband is now carrying gas with confidence. The other neighbor adjusted her wrapper. Confidence? Yes, so before he used to hold it like burden, but now he holds it like leadership. News travels fast in compounds, faster than Wi-Fi. So, by the next morning, 3 women had asked Saratu, "So, this conference, where is it holding next?" Saratu smiled mysteriously. "It is not a location, it is an awakening." They nodded as if they understood, but they did not. Meanwhile, Kabiru had entered a new stage. He was in stage public masculinity. He now paid bills before reminders, bought fuel before blackout, replied his mother without supervision, and checked the water tank level voluntarily. One evening, he entered the house with vegetables confidently. Saratu raised an eyebrow. "You went to the market?" "Yes," he nodded. "Without emergency?" He nodded. "Yes." Saratu clapped. "Wow, I am impressed." He tried not to smile too proudly, but thanks to his flexibility, soft life was spreading in the compound. One Saturday, Danladi came to Kabiru privately. "My brother." "Yes," Kabiru said. "This thing your wife did." "What thing?" Kabiru asked. "This soft life alignment." Kabiru sighed. "Okay, what happened?" "My wife had started asking dangerous questions," Danladi replied. Kabiru stiffened. "What kind of dangerous questions?" "She asked why I cannot cook once in a while." Kabiru blinked slowly. "And what did you say?" "I laughed." Kabiru frowned. "You laughed?" "Yes, now, I thought she was joking." Kabiru stared at him. But she did not laugh." Kabiru exhaled slowly. "That is serious." Danladi nodded. "She mentioned Saratu." Kabiru's face changed slightly. "What about her?" "She said if Saratu can rest and still look happy, maybe she has been doing too much in our house too." Kabiru folded his arms. "And what did you say?" Danladi shifted uncomfortably. I said every house is different." Kabiru folded his arms. "See, listen carefully. If she has started talking about alignment, you need to act fast though." "Act fast how?" Danladi asked. "You need to buy bread voluntarily, sweep once, and show early signs of cooperation." Danladi looked alarmed. "Voluntarily?" "Yes, so before February reaches your house." Danladi swallowed hard. "My brother, this thing is spreading, oh." Kabiru nodded gravely. "It is airborne." That evening, Reby visited in her full energy and full commentary. She entered the compound shouting, "Main character!" Saratu laughed. Kabiru sat quietly on the couch observing them. Reby looked at him. "So, how is leadership?" Kabiru exhaled. "It is heavy but manageable." Reby clapped. "That is growth." Kabiru leaned forward. "Let me ask honestly, is this soft life permanent?" Saratu tilted her head. "Why do you ask?" I just want to know if there will be a second upgrade." Saratu laughed. "There is always evolution." Kabiru's eyes widened slightly. "Please, inform me before the next download." Fortunately, the soft life was paying off because 2 weeks later, Kabiru came home unusually quiet. Saratu noticed immediately. "You look stressed." He nodded. "My boss said something today." "What?" Saratu asked. "He said I look more organized lately." Saratu blinked. "Well, that is good." He asked what changed. Saratu smiled. "What did you say?" Kabiru paused and replied, "I said my wife leaned back." Saratu burst into laughter so loud that even Auntie Hawa paused sweeping outside. "You told him that?" "Yes, now." And he said maybe he needs the conference too. They both laughed. That night, Kabiru lay beside her calmly. "Saratu, yes?" "I was scared in February." "Why?" she asked. "I thought you were leaving me emotionally." She softened slightly. "I was leaving stress, not you." Kabiru nodded. "You know something?" "What?" she asked. "You used to do too much." She nodded solemnly. and I allowed it, he added. She did not respond immediately. Then later she said, we were both comfortable. He nodded. Well, soft life has brought us balance. The next morning, Auntie Hawa stopped Sarah near the gate. My dear, yes ma, she replied. This your soft life, is it not making you lazy? Saratu smiled sweetly. No ma. Then what is it making you? She adjusted her sunglasses dramatically and replied, unavailable for unnecessary suffering. Auntie Hawa blinked twice. Wow, that is powerful. Inside the house, Kabiru was packing lunch. He looked deeply involved. He stepped outside later carrying the trash bag. Auntie Hawa stared at him. You too? Kabiru smiled. It is alignment, ma. She shook her head. This compound will not be the same again. And she was right, because by May, 3 women in the compound had started calling up their feminine energy, and 2 men had begun buying bread without announcements. One even attempted lighting scented candle. Soft life had successfully spread. Hi besties, thank you for watching this story. This story is dedicated to our birthday bestie, Saratu. Happy birthday, dear Saratu. May your year ahead be amazing. Let's kindly wish her well in the comment section. If you know you enjoyed the story, give the story a thumbs up and share the story out with your loved ones. Subscribe to this channel if you've not done so by now. Until I bring another story your way. Bye!